આપણે નેક્સ્ટ બુક તરફ આગળ વધીશું. સો નેક્સ્ટ બુક છે આપણી ધ 5 ડિસફંક્શન્સ ઓફ અ ટીમ. અને આપણે બધાને કામ લાગે એવું છે એમાંથી, ખાસ કરીને જેમને પણ પીપલ મેનેજમેન્ટ પિક્ચરમાં આવતું હોય, સો એમના માટે ખૂબ વાંચવા જેવી બુક છે. આના વિશે આપણે વધારે ડિટેલમાં આપણને રિવ્યૂ આપશે મિસ્ટર પરેશ પાલડિયા. સો યસ, હેન્ડ ઓવર ટુ યુ પરેશ સર. અને સોરી, તો પરેશ સર માટે થોડું ડિટેલમાં બેકગ્રાઉન્ડ આપું તો એમને પણ બુક વાંચવાનો ખૂબ શોખ છે. ઇન્ટરનેશનલ બુક્સ અલગ અલગ કેટેગરીઝની વાંચતા હોય છે અને ખૂબ સારું નોલેજ છે અને બહુ સારી રીતે ઇફેક્ટિવલી શેર પણ કરતા હોય છે. સો આપણે એને સાંભળીએ અને આમાંથી લર્ન કરીએ. સો યસ, હેન્ડ ઓવર ટુ યુ પરેશ સર.
Okay, thank you, Ashish.
એક મિનિટ પરેશ સર.
Yes.
આશીષ સર, અત્યારે બરાક ઓબામાની બુકનું રિવ્યુ થઈ રહ્યું હતું, તો આપણે પરેશ માટે એ પણ મેન્શન કરવું જોઈએ કે એમણે ઓબામા કેર પ્રોજેક્ટ પર પણ કામ કર્યું છે.
Yes, I was part of that Affordable Care Act.
ઓકે, સો પરેશ વોઝ ઇન સ્ટેટ્સ ફોર અરાઉન્ડ 17 years. તો એ ઓબામા કેર કરીને જે પ્રોજેક્ટ હતો, સોફ્ટવેર પ્રોજેક્ટ, એટલે ઓબામા કેર જે એનું ઓબામા ગવર્મેન્ટનું જે પોલિસી હતી એના ભાગરૂપે દરેક અમેરિકનને ગવર્મેન્ટ ઇન્સ્યોરન્સ મળે, મેડિકલ ઇન્સ્યોરન્સ મળે. તો એના માટેનું જે સોફ્ટવેર હતું એની કોર ટીમમાં હી વોઝ વન ઓફ ધેમ એઝ અ સિનિયર આર્કિટેક્ટ. સો યસ, દેટ વોઝ અબાઉટ પરેશ.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. So good evening, everyone. I'm just going to give a quick overview about this book. It's a 5 dysfunctions of a team. As it mentioned, it's a leadership fable. So before I start the review of the book, I would like to talk about the author, just give you a little bit context, why he wrote the book. So his name is Patrick Lencioni. He is the founder and the president of this Fable group. What this company does is basically they work with S&P 500 companies to set up and cultivate their management and executive team, how to make them work in harmony towards the common goal. So that's the consulting he does. So this book exactly talks about how he does and like what kind of issues people would have. So, and other books he has written is the 5 Temptations of a CEO and the 4 Obsession of an Extraordinary Executive. I haven't read those books, but they were NY Times best-selling books as well. Though this is, as you mentioned, like normally he said that we review new books, but this one is a little bit older. I would say almost 2 decades, but it's relevant in this current time as well. We'll see in the next few slides. So next slide, please. Yeah, so why you should read this book. So normally when you read any personal development or business books, it talks about, like kind of issues people face and the company culture and this and that, right? Nice thing about this book I found was this starts with the story. So it's like he made up one fictional company, Decision Tech, and he laid out, like kind of roles in the company, like would be like would be in any company. And then he talks about every character in the company and like what happens in the meeting. So it's nice fiction story. So it's like you're reading novel. So you don't get bored with the typical business terms and so it's I would say you get into the books. So that's how he laid out. And again, I'm like, if you want to create harmony in your team, you feel that people are not working towards common goal, and you want to cultivate culture in the company, or it's relevant to even in your personal, I would say, relationship as well. And as third point is just say when you want to build a cohesive team, like where there is a harmony in the team. Next slide, please. Okay, just quickly, it's a 5 dysfunctions. So the first one is at the bottom. It's absence of the trust, like when there is no trust in between members. The second one is the fear of conflict. Like people doesn't want to get into conflict and they don't want to give their opinions. Third one is the lack of commitment, like people are not committed to their work. The fourth one is the accountability. People don't take or they are not ready to take the responsibility because they don't feel that they're committed to their work. And the last one is the inattention to results, like goal of the company or the vision of the company or vision of anything that they are working in as a team. So there's 5 dysfunction. I am just in the next few slides, I'm going to talk about how they are interrelated, and you will see like, why it's laid out with the pyramid. So next slide, please. Yeah, and I have tried to capture some images which may be relevant to the topic. Yeah. So absence of the trust, right? So when you don't have trust between the members, like, like we have seen that, a lot of time what happens in any companies or anywhere is people want to, or like since childhood, like we have done that, right? We want to be always win the race, and we have to put that best face in front of everybody, that I'm the best in what I'm doing, right? Or like wherever you are. So people don't want to show their weaknesses, because we feel that if I show my weaknesses, I'll be vulnerable. Like people will want me, include me somewhere, or they won't help me, things like that, right? So we are always trying to show that, I know everything, like whatever we are working on. So that happens when you don't have the trust, because let's say if you are like, if you when you are with your best friend or somebody, like you are very open, like you are transparent, but you don't show that like with your colleagues or something. So that's what he is trying to say, that like when that's missing, this is you should work on, because people don't try to find the help, and it affects your productivity. So some of the tools I mentioned, the tools of work you can do, how you can overcome. So one of the things mentioned was like personal history exercise. So like, when you start when you introduce someone, or a new person joins your team or something, you start talking about, like, don't start with like what they know as a professional, but rather start personal, right? Like your family, or like what you did as a childhood, what kind of challenges you faced, what are your hobbies, the things like that. So when everybody shares things like that, a lot of time happens that common things will come out, and they will start connecting. So that's how the bond generates, right? The second thing is you mentioned about team effectiveness exercise. So that one is another one, is like, you want to know. So let's say if I have like 5 people I'm meeting, and there are leaders, right? So everyone should share, like what is one of the weakness they want to work on this year, or maybe this quarter, or something like that. Right? And you start with maybe senior member. So let's say as a leader, maybe you can start, show them vulnerability. Like it's okay to show the weakness, because as a leader, sometimes we have that tendency that we want to show that, like we are tough, and we can overcome any situation. I'm not vulnerable. I don't have any weakness. But as a leader, maybe you have to show that. That's how maybe you can pass it on to your team. And again, make that environment in your surrounding or in the company, that vulnerability is okay. Even if you show weakness, it doesn't mean like we're gonna fire you, or we're not gonna give you enough raise, or like, so it shouldn't affect their performance as long as they're working on that, right? So you have to set up that culture. Next slide, please. So when you have absence of trust, what happens is it's people don't get into conflict, because let's say if any meeting is happening and somebody wants to share their opinion, right? They have that, okay, like maybe my leader is not going to listen to me, because if my opinion is not right, or if I'm saying something which may not make sense, then they may judge me, like I don't have enough knowledge. So that's why people then, because there's lack of trust, so now people are not going to get into the debate. So when I say conflict is not like fighting, but rather the debate. You want to set up a culture where people are debating, they're coming up with their ideas, you should have that culture. People can throw any idea on the table, and you should have that debate on it, right? And then you work on it. And if you don't do that, then what will happen? Like we have seen that sometimes your junior can come up with they have sharp mind, and they can come up with very great idea, and you end up producing a inferior result, because they haven't shared their opinion, whatever they're going to work on. So that's why you want to create that culture where people can have the debate on any topic. Now, some of the tools you can work on it. So one of the things he talks about is the minor of conflict. So what it means, like you allocate a person, or in the company, or in the team, who knows where the conflict or some undue issues are there, right? And so they try to bring it up during the meeting. They let them work on it. So real-time permission means you, as I said, like you do one-to-one. So maybe you call it out someone, and you try to provoke that issue in your patient, right? And then you let them naturally resolve. So as a leader, like don't try to do that. If somebody is debating and you think, okay, it's going to be unproductive, and you want to say, okay, work it out in your own time, don't do it here, right? Things like that. But you have to let that naturally resolve, because once it's done, then people won't be afraid, and then they'll be open to debate, because views are taken into consideration. And again, you have to, as a leader, you have to set up the appropriate conflict behavior, right? So it means you should be also okay to debate, and you have to know that it is constructive debate, not like it shouldn't be fight. You have to start with you, like as a leader. Next slide, please. Now, when you have fear of conflict, right? What happens is like then, because people are not giving their opinion, they are not openly discussing things. So they're not gonna commit to things when some decisions are taken during the meeting, right? So there will be ambiguity. It ends up having the ambiguity among the team. Like, everybody will have their own priorities, and they won't be committed to things decided in the meeting, right? And sometimes because they are not committed in things, like they sometimes overanalyze things, and because they're overanalyze, so you end up missing the opportunity. And there's always fear of failure because of that commitment missing, right? Now, some of the tools you can work on, he said, was one of the things is cascading messaging, means like meeting minutes or something. So whenever you take any decisions or drive any goals or anything during the meeting, you have to ask everyone, right? What we committed on. You have to discuss it out at the end of the meeting. So it's not like you're sending up the meeting notes by email or something, but rather discuss it out in the meeting. Okay, these are the few things, like important things we committed to, and you get buy-in from everybody. Declare the deadlines. So people should stick to deadline, because whenever you commit some deadline and you have set date, people tend to work on that and try to commit to themselves to that date. And always late, like when you're taking any big decision and people are afraid to make the commitment, then you go with the worst case scenario, right? Okay, what is worst case scenario? And then you go with that. Okay, we are ready with that. So then people won't be afraid, and they will then commit to it. So as a leader, I mean, you have to do that, right? So you have to be prepared also. That as I said, like like people say that success doesn't come directly, right? It builds on the lot of failure. So as a leader, you have to be prepared. Then you're like, it's okay to take wrong decision, and you have to set up that culture. Even like you have to give that confidence to your leaders. And, it's okay to take wrong decision. We're gonna be okay as long as you have that commitment from the people. So you have to set up that. Yeah. So now the commitment is missing. Then you don't have accountability, because people haven't committed to work. So now the accountability is going to be missing, right? So it's going to be the mediocre culture in the company. And because people are not taking that responsibility, and they don't have an accountability, they're going to pass the blame to other people, right? As Chris mentioned, Barack Obama, when he worked on the things, and he said that he set up the team where you're not making anybody scapegoat. You're working as a team. So your success is always as a team, and your failure is always as a team. So you set up that culture. And so some of the tools he mentioned he can work is like, when you mention any goals or any create any standards, it has to be known the company wise. Every member of your company should know that what goals company is working on, what is our vision, and then we should be committed to it, right? And always set up the regular process, simple and regular process. So it could be weekly meeting, it could be bi-weekly or something like that. So where you're reviewing things and making sure that people are working towards that, right? And give a rewards as a team. Like in a lot of time we do individual rewards, but give a reward as a team as well. So when you set up any goals or any deadlines, or when they are met, you give them reward as a team. Even though some individual will not matter, I mean, that's personal reward, you can give it out, but declare it as a team also, so people know that we are working as a team. So as a leader, you are setting up that culture, right? That again, I mean, like sometimes it happens that people may not take that accountability, or they're doing blaming someone. So sometimes you still have to work as an arbiter and try to resolve that conflict. Next slide, please. Now you don't have, if people in your team or in your leadership team are not taking the accountability, then you won't produce that result, right? Your goal. I'm not talking about just financial goal, right? It could be, let's say you're making a product or something, and you have to give out some key deliverable by first quarter or second or some quarter, right? Then you won't be achieving that goal, because people are not committing to that. And people will be working on their individual goal, rather, because they think that on this team, we are not part of the team, or we are not part of the company. So they are just thinking about their career, their individuality. They are not working towards the common goal. So some of the tools he said how you can overcome with that is like a public declaration of result. So just I mentioned a few minutes ago, like, you know, declare out everything. Like whenever this is the goal of this year, like, you know, let's say we are committed to get 10 accounts of, let's say, $100,000 or $1 million, right? So your goal is that, and then everything should be on that. Like, you know, whenever somebody, let's say some leadership member comes up with some idea where you can generate some other business, then you're focused because you declared this, you're committed to that. So your focus should be that, okay, is it helping this goal? No, then I don't want to divert my focus, right? So you are setting up that culture. So you have to set up that goal. And you are declaring the result-based goal, right? So you are dividing into small results or small milestones, and you are giving that reward. So some of the tools you can, and as a leader, as I said, you have to set up that tone, and you have to be selfless and objective, as I mentioned, because you could have some opportunity which are bigger or might help something else, but because you have set up that goal, you have to take that decision. Right? And sometimes it happens that people may not achieve that goal. They would have worked hard, your whole team, and still wouldn't have achieved that goal. But you still want to reward them because they worked hard, right? It shouldn't be very hard line. It shouldn't be set on very hard line, right? That we'll reward you only if you achieve. But sometimes you have to recognize that also because they're ultimately human, right? So, yeah. So in a nutshell, I would say, go to the next slide, please. So in a summary, like if you work on the, as you mentioned, like, you know, some of the things, like, you know, when you meant trust, you build because you are just human, right? You can make mistakes, so it's okay. And you can make mistakes, and so it is fine. So that's how you build the trust, right? Conflict means, you know, demand debate. You know, make sure your teams are not, as you mentioned, like if everybody's agreeing and everything every time, it's not right. But then it means people are not giving their opinion. They are not debating enough. Get the commitment, like have the focus, clarity, and then get the closure. Like, you know, when the meeting is done or anything is, like, you know, big decisions are taken, make sure all your members are buying enough. Right? I mean, they are committed to that. And you know, ask people to take the accountability, confront difficult issues, and as a goal, like, you know, focus on the outcome. You know, work towards your goal. Make sure all the activities are happening around that. So yeah, so in a nutshell, this is summary. I would say it's a very good book. I think everybody should read. And as I mentioned, it won't just help in the company wise. All these topics are very relevant. I have found it like in personal relationship as well. But all these things are very, very important. Yeah, thank you all. So I will highly recommend this. It's a small book, it's around 200 pages or something, and very easy read.
Thank you, Paresh sir. It was a wonderful review. So now we will open it for question and answer. Please unmute yourself and ask your question. Before anyone asks, maybe I have a question, Paresh sir.
Sure.
You mentioned that it is also helpful in a personal life. So do you mind to elaborate it a bit, like, you know, how we can make it happen in a personal life? Maybe.
So I would say in personal relationship, right? So when I say like even let's say with your wife or with your kids or anywhere, right? Everything starts with the trust. Like, you know, when you are discussing anything with any member, there should be trust. There should be, you know, commitment. Let's say with my wife, I'm working on, let's say, how I want to raise my kids or what, you know, like what we want to give them, right? There should be common goal, right? So all these things are, I would say, it's relevant. Or let's say you have wedding in your family, right? And like a lot of time we do that, right? Like we have that family members together in, and then we divide the work. So there also you want to declare, you know, like what we are working on, what is our common goal. You set up that structure.
Okay, got it. Thanks. Yes, please. Anyone is having any questions, please feel free. Okay, so
Paresh, Alpesh Gedi hai. One question, as you mentioned about that natural resolution of conflicts within a team.
Mhm.
Okay. But so if you can elaborate more, because in my experience, those natural, arbitration backfires most of the time. Okay, so how could we, use that natural process to, address those conflicts?
Sorry, one minute, question. Sorry.
Okay, no worries.
Yeah, so yeah, he didn't mention like, a lot of things around it, but what I would say is, he says that, like sometimes like if some debate starts in the meeting, you don't want to resolve in the first meeting itself, right? Sometimes you give them time, he says. So if you go through that, I would say read the book, and if you see the story he has written in the book, you will see that, like how, so the story, like, one new CEO joins and how she gets to know the team, and he knows about the character and how she handles people. So yeah, so I think if you read the book, you will know the interest. I don't want to give it out right now. I want you to read
Sure.
it.
Thank you, sir. Definitely, I will go for this.
I maybe if no one is having a question, I have a question, Paresh. So what stop the leaders from declaring the goals? Is there any issues? What any clarification has been mentioned in the book? I mean, in one of the requirement mentioned is, as a leader, you should declare the goal publicly, right?
Yes.
So any kind of a motivation we may get from the book where,
So a lot of time what happens is like a lot of companies have, they don't declare anything like what's goal of their this year, right? They don't declare. I mean, they have vision maybe, like where they want to be, like 5 year, 10 year, but they don't break it out in quarter wise or maybe yearly. Like what you go. I mean, the goal should be, sometimes people say, okay, I want to be very successful company. Okay, well, what is the success for you, right? So they would have maybe 10 year down the vision. But let's say this year, what would be success for you? So as I mentioned, like it might be, let's say $2 million revenue, right? Okay, $2 million revenue. Then how do I achieve it? Like, what does it mean? Like, get 20 customer of $100,000, or maybe, so you break it down, right? And then you have that clear goal that, okay, I want to get maybe 20 accounts with the $100,000, and then your whole sales team, everybody's working on that only. So your tech team, everybody, like, when this kind of opportunity comes, they're helping that member, like sales team, and they're just working with that common goal. So you are not just working with that common, I would say rather generic financial goal, right? So they say, like, break it down to very, granular level. And that's sometimes people don't declare the company level. So company level means like your leadership, and then your leadership pass it on to their team. So it could be different meaning for different people, right? So let's say revenue could mean something else for sales versus tech, right? For tech, it might be, like quality or project or, things like that. So sales might be revenue target, or marketing, it would be something else. So this is for the executive team, and then at the bottom of the team, it goes, in a different way.
Okay, thank you. So yes, is there anyone who is having any questions? Okay, so I feel no one is having any other questions. So thank you so much, Paresh sir, for the wonderful